Welcome to another episode of Student to Faculty, a series where we celebrate those who began their academic journey here as students and now have come a full circle to contribute as esteemed members of our faculty. Our guest today, Tawsif Ur Rashid, completed his undergraduate degree in biotechnology from Brack University in 2021. His exceptional academic journey took him to the University of Copenhagen, where he completed his master's in biotechnology in 2023. He returned to his alma mater in 2023 to serve as a lecturer at Brack University. His area of interest includes cellular and molecular biology, cancer research, and immunology. Now let's move forward with the interview. Hello sir, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good.
Okay, sir.
Going okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have this session with us. It's wonderful to have you here. So we are going to start now. And looking back on your days as a student at Brack University, did you ever imagine that you'd return here one day, but as a lecturer? And now that you've become a full circle student to faculty, how does it feel to be back inside the classroom, but on the other side of it?
So I never really thought about coming back as a lecturer or even a researcher when I was a student, at least not for the first part of my student life, because I actually had no idea what I was doing and where my life was going initially. But because now I have a very good chance to go public on a lot of things, it's someone specific who really inspired me to become a faculty, and that person is Akash sir. I don't think a lot of people know the person because he's from Dhaka University. He used to be a lecturer at biotechnology programs. So I was actually doing one of his courses, which was virology oncology, and I was just awestruck because he had this aura about himself whenever he used to conduct these classes, and you used to feel like, okay, this is what I want to do. I mean, there's two sides to it. You essentially either want to be a researcher or a teacher. I am more deviated towards becoming a teacher, and that is more specifically due to Akash sir. And that's when I first thought that, okay, it's probably not a bad idea. But then you start thinking, am I qualified enough to compete with all the talented people that are there across the country? So yeah, I never really thought about it. But then coming back, it definitely feels very special to me, for sure, because this has always been, even it's a cliche dialogue, it's my home, right? So coming back felt very special to me, yes.
That's wonderful to hear. It must feel surreal to see such familiar faces in space, but from a whole new perspective. Speaking of which, what's one thing from Brack University that feels exactly the same as when you were a student, and what feels completely different?
Right now, nothing feels the same because we just moved to a new campus, apart from the exam stress that I see students going through. So that's the only common ground. But initially, when I joined as a faculty, it was back in our old campus. Every single thing felt the same. It was like a nostalgia all over because you go to Prangun, you go to the 15th floor in the M&S department, or the Bottola. Everything, everywhere I went, there was a flashback. And when I was standing on the other side of the classroom, it definitely felt special. Right now, things have changed for the better, obviously. So it's a bit difficult for me to connect from a student's perspective because what I saw back then was very different. But initially, yes. It took me a lot of time to actually realize that, okay, now I'm a faculty, not a student. So yeah.
Sir, that's such a meaningful reflection. It's inspiring to hear your viewpoint. Now going back a bit, what first inspired you to pursue biotechnology? And among that many fascinating areas in that field, which one excites you the most right now?
So initially during my A-levels days, we had this book, bio book, and the last chapter was about genetics. Back then I did not really understand what genetics is, but because I did not really like studying human bio a lot, when I was going through genetics, that felt like the only thing where you could bring in new ideas or which actually prompted you to think a lot into deeper instead of memorizing, right? So that's what initially prompted me. Then I did some research on Google about what genetic engineering is. Then I got accustomed to the term biotechnology. That's what sort of inspired me to pursue this career. And then when I actually went for my master's and pursued my higher education, I got deviated towards molecular biology because so my main interest is studying about immunology and proteins. Someday my thesis dissertation for my PhD, I would like it to be something like how proteins move or what proteins are doing inside the cell. And my specialization is something which is called a vesicle. I don't know if people are used to the term, it's not a very common term, but I like studying and researching a lot on vesicles. These are like, how do I say it for the common people? It's like a DHL service, but within the cell, right? They're carrying things and moving things around within the cell. And what I want to find out is the role that these vesicles have inside cancer cells. Because essentially, once you find that, then you also find a targeted therapy. Because I believe that based on some studies, I believe that these vesicles play a prominent role in cancer development. So that is the answer that I'm looking for, but I'm still a long way away and there is a lot to learn. So let's see.
Sir, that's fascinating. Your passion really comes through. Since you mentioned how dynamic the field is and it has various prospects to it, let's talk a little bit about where it's headed next. How do you see biotechnology education evolving in the coming years, both globally and here in Bangladesh?
I think biotechnology already had its boom. It had its big boom during the COVID period. And from when I started, we were a group of 15, 17 people in one batch. Now the intake is much higher because the fascination towards the subject is very high. Right? So what I think is going, like as we move forward, the subject will gain more popularity because there is a lot of importance to what we do, whether it's genetics, whether it's cellular biology, whether it's bioinformatics. You are essentially answering medical based problems, agricultural based problems, which has a direct impact to our economy and the global economy, right? And the fundings are also pouring in, at least like worldwide, there's a lot of funding and scope for a lot of research right now, right? So I think it will only improve and reach newer heights. Like the popularity that maybe a CSE has or an economics has. Right now, I think within the next 5-10 years, biotechnology will be in the same field. You will have a lot of students, you will have a lot of researchers with newer ideas. So I only think that it will go to a positive direction.
That's a big hope for future scientists. Sir, if you weren't in academia, what career path do you think you might have taken within biotechnology or maybe outside of it?
I don't think I could excel at anything else other than academia. I don't know if I do excel at academia, but yeah, it's not academics that I would have been in. I always had a passion towards sports. I used to watch a lot of sports, and while growing up, I wanted to be a cricketer. But then my mom was very against it because she did not like the idea of playing and all that. Because you know, from our country and background, everyone wants an engineer or a doctor or something like that. So even though I'm not an engineer, I hope I made my mom proud. But if I wasn't an academician, then I would definitely be a cricketer or a sports person, even though I'm pretty bad at it.
Sure, that's an interesting what if. It's always fun to imagine where else your talents might have taken you. So, do you ever see parts of your younger self in your students today?
Sometimes, not a lot of times, and I'll tell you why. Because now the competition is so high between students, and people are always wanting or yearning for good grades, and rightly so, because you know, if you want a job, if you want a scholarship, you need to be able to compete globally. During our time, it was still difficult, but the competition was not that high. So for me, I was a bit more relaxed. I did not really ever think about the examinations or getting a good grade. I focused more on the process, on how do you prepare. My ideology was you prepare as much as you can, and during the exam, you don't think about grades or you don't think about anything else other than that. So I do come across a few students who I see are as calm and composed as maybe I was. So yeah, I can, but now I see more people panicking.
That's such a wholesome observation. It really shows how teaching can mirror one's journey. And speaking of connections, sir, students often describe you as one of their favorite faculty members. What's your secret to connecting so well with them? Beyond academics, what do you hope they take away from your classes? And have you ever found yourself learning something from your students?
I mean, the initial statement is an interesting take, but I will address two sides to it. So the ones that actually think that, okay, I could effectively teach them and do my job, I cannot like emphasize how much I'm thankful to them. Because even the students think that faculties don't take their opinions into consideration, they do. And the positive words and words of affirmation, that genuinely means a lot to us. It uplifts us a lot. And to the students who think that, okay, sir could have done a better job, I would like to apologize to them. And I would also like to tell them that maybe give me one more chance so that I could improve myself, because I've been here for 6 semesters. And every semester I try and improve myself and upgrade myself because I'm still learning. You can never really get enough of teaching, right? Because I always tell this to people that being a student and being a teacher are very different, and grades cannot determine whether you are a good teacher. Research papers cannot determine whether you're a good teacher, right? It's a completely different set of skills that you need to connect to the students. So to the ones that think that I'm doing good at my job, I genuinely appreciate it. To the ones who think I don't, I apologize, because it's a public platform, so I would like to take this opportunity. And as for connecting, the mentality is that either the students need to think, whenever they do my class, they need to think that, okay, whatever sir is saying, I get it, I understand it. It doesn't have to be 100% of it, because we are taking classes for 1 hour 20 minutes, right? So how long can you actually concentrate? After 30 minutes, your brain starts to think of other things, you're starting to think, when can I move out of the class? So even then, for the first 30 minutes, even if then the students are engrossed or engaged, that's a lot to me. And if 50% or 60% of the class is actually listening to you, that's a very high number. And if not in the class, then when they're preparing for their exams, I want students to think that, okay, these are the class notes and this is the book, right? I think whatever sir gave us in the class is much more easier than what's written in the book. So if students feel that, then I have done my job. Because what they don't realize is it's very easy to teach something which is very difficult or complicated, but it's hard to make it sound easy. If you study or go through my notes and you go like, okay, that was very easy, that means that somehow I'm doing my job properly. And that is always my aim. And before every class, even though I'm not going over the books all the time, a lot of students might have noticed that I'm always walking like behind my desk, right? That is when I'm actually thinking, how can I make things easy for them? I always try and find a connector in everything I teach. And it is very, very difficult because I have a class tomorrow on medical biotechnology, and I spent the entire night and also today just thinking about how can I make it easy for them. Because it's a very complicated course, and I know that students will find it very difficult because not everyone has the same concept. But the idea is, how do you explain it to a weaker student? Because the good students, they will easily get you. How do you explain it to the mass? So it takes a lot more time thinking about the class than just preparing for it. The main preparation is thinking on how you can make it easier. So I guess that kind of works, and also I think I am not that strict in class, so that's why students can connect, maybe.
That's beautifully said. You actually meant that your students mean a lot to you. That's really beautiful to hear. Now let's shift the gears a bit back and talk about your experience abroad. You completed your Masters in Biotechnology at the University of Copenhagen under the Danish government scholarship. An incredible achievement, sir. Congratulations on that. What was that experience like for you? Were there any major cultural shocks or academic shocks? And how did you adapt to a completely new environment?
Cultural shocks, obviously, but if I just focus on academia, when I moved to Copenhagen, it was basically amazing for me because I loved how they go over their academics. And the first thought when I got into Copenhagen was that I went to my father. My father initially did not really, he thought that I would be better off studying maybe architecture or computer engineering. And because I was not a good student, I can't really blame my father. He did not have the confidence in me. So when I got the scholarship, I first went to my father. And what was pleasing to me is that my father was proud of me. My mom was always supportive throughout, so that wasn't an issue. But I was more happy that I could make my father proud. Then when I went to Copenhagen, I noticed a drastic difference between how we study in BRAC and how we study abroad. The main difference that I feel, I might be wrong and apologies for that, but in Bangladesh, it's more centered towards memorizing. It's more centered towards how much of the syllabus you can cover. What is your grade? How can you attain good grades? These are things which are ingrained to us from the beginning. But when I went to Copenhagen, grade was just something which was a part of your work. It was more focused on how can you hypothesize, how can you think about different topics, how can you bring in different ideas. And that is when I had a shift. I had a shift in my thinking because I was like, okay, so I don't need to think about grades. All I need to do is study the theories, but don't just stay limited to whatever theoretical understanding you have. You expand on it. You expand on it by thinking differently. And if you have done my class, you will notice that my classes are more based on ideas. I ask a lot of questions, I ask a lot of hypotheses, I ask students, okay, what do you think would be the alternative to what I said? And that is what I inherited from Copenhagen. It was very difficult initially because I too had that mindset that, look, I will memorize books and pages and notes and I need to get a good grade. But soon enough I realized that, okay, the game is not about memorizing, it's about understanding, interpreting, and having the freedom and liberty to think. So that was a big shift, and I absolutely am grateful to BRAC for giving me the foundation and to Copenhagen for helping me to develop as a researcher and a thinker. And for all the teaching that I do right now, it's majorly because of what I got from Copenhagen, what I took from every single faculty in Copenhagen. And they were so humble and their humility spoke for themselves, right? So that was the main shift for me.
That's truly inspiring. It sounds like that chapter played a huge role in shaping who you are today. Now, sir, coming back to Bangladesh, in Bangladesh, opportunities of life science research, especially at undergraduate level, are often limited. What do you think are the key challenges behind that, and how can students make most of the resources that are available to them?
So, two things. Right now, compared to 5 years, 7 years ago, we do have a lot more facilities. But the problem is the funding issues that actually there is a global impact on the recent funding issues that happen. And in general as well, I think Bangladesh or the universities from Bangladesh receive or have the opportunity to get a lot less funding compared to others. I think that's the main sort of barrier. As for how students can utilize, I think for undergrad students that depends more on the supervisors, right? Because when you're doing undergrad, you only know so much. It's the supervisors, it's the professors that needs to teach you how to work your way around it. My advice to students, and when students or thesis students that I have, what I tell them is make the most of it. Make the most of all the resources that you have, because right now it's not like BRAC has limited resources. BRAC is providing outstanding level of resources. It is now providing a lot of grants and funding, just like other universities in Bangladesh, Dhaka University, NSQ, East West. But it's up to the supervisors to teach students how to maximize the efficiency. Right, so you need to, and also I think there needs to be a certain direction. Oftentimes when we used to work as thesis students, not me, but I used to see students like not knowing what they're actually doing, what is their main aim for the research project, right? I was maybe fortunate enough to do my thesis under Iftikhar sir, so he was always there guiding me throughout. But this is a common trend that I see in a lot of universities in Bangladesh, right? So once you teach students what the goal is, once you teach students that okay, this is what you have to do, once you're clear with them, then I think students will learn a lot. So it's more on the onus is more on us, supervisors and teachers, and less on the students. Obviously, then the students also have to take the responsibility to do the job, right? But the initial thinking and the framework needs to be set up by the supervisors. And as for the research facilities, Bangladesh is definitely improving a lot right now.
So your take on it is really helpful and totally inspiring. Sir, what does success look to you now? And has that definition changed since your student days? And what has been your proudest moment so far here as a faculty member?
So the first part will be a very cliche and a boring answer, but So when I was a student, success to me was, for the first 2 years I was blank. There was no thought in my mind, but in the latter half of my student career, success was becoming a faculty at BRAC. I just wanted to be a BRAC at any cost. Success was getting a PhD dissertation, doing a good research that would help our medical sector. And Alhamdulillah, right now I'm doing all of these three above. But now, as I have matured and grown, success has changed a lot in my opinion. To me, right now, it's a very cliche answer. Success to me is being able to provide everything that my family wants, being able to go on trips with my family, taking care of my cat, spending a lot of time with my friends. That is success to me, because we are so busy with our work and work life that there is no balance to it. Even me, I suffer from not balancing my personal life and my private life. I am so engrossed in teaching, studying, researching, thinking about what to do next, that whenever I get a chance to spend time with my family, that seems like a success to me. So you can tell that I've aged. I'm not saying this for the effects. It's just how I think right now.
Sir, that's a powerful reflection. So now, is there something you wish students understood more about their teachers, or any misconceptions students often have about their faculty members?
Generally, students are very understanding towards teachers, right? So the only thing would be that I speak for all teachers. Teachers don't have it easy. It's a very, very demanding job. You need to study, research every single day. Whether it's the semester breaks, whether it's a weekend, you are always thinking about work, you are always studying. And I think students get that, but maybe sometimes one or two students, it will be very helpful if they realize that, okay, maybe whatever difficulty we are facing, the teachers are also facing something similar. But I do get, we don't have to worry about grades, right? So that's more difficult and challenging, but we don't have it easy as well. Other than that, students are very nice.
To wrap it up, if you could go back and give your undergraduate self one piece of advice, what would that be? And what message would you send to current graduate students who aspire to follow your footsteps?
The only advice I would give, and it's the same advice I would give to students, is to relax. Not worry too much, not stress too much. It will happen. Whatever you want, you don't have to be academically brilliant. You don't have to be brilliant in research. You just take one or two skills that you're very good at, you identify that, and you work on it. That could be speaking, public speaking. That could be writing. That could be videography. That could be, taking an interview. It could also be teaching. But if you worry too much, if you think a lot about the race, it's a rat race, right? This entire world. If you think too much about it, you will actually go nowhere. The only place you will end up is your mind, where you're overthinking all the time, where you're competing with something that doesn't exist. Don't compete with other people. Compete with yourself, trying to make yourself better. But at the same time, don't fall into the rat race. Don't have a timeline in your head that, okay, if I graduate 2 months later, 6 months down the line, I need to have a master's. 8 months later, I need to have a job. 2 years later, I need to have a PhD. What if I can't become a professor? What if I can't get a good job? Don't think about it. If you think too much about it, then you're already falling behind. Work towards it, be proactive, try and do. And the biggest learning that I had was from my failures. I worked a lot during my A-levels, but I did not really have a good grade. I did pretty bad compared to my peers, but I took a lot from that. The thing is, every time something doesn't go my way, it could even be a lecture. I'm taking a class and I see one or two students not understanding. They think they don't know that I notice their face, but when I'm going back to my desk, I'm thinking, okay, why did the person not understand? Where did I fail? Instead of thinking, okay, the student was not paying attention, instead of thinking that, okay, the students could have done better, the first finger that I point towards is myself. Where could I have done differently? What could I improve, right? That way, what you're doing is you're already a step ahead. I'm not thinking that, okay, what if in the next class the student doesn't understand again? What will happen? I'm not thinking about the consequences. I am thinking about how I can avoid that consequence from happening. So that would be my only advice to them. And I just want them to be more composed right now. because I see students panicking a lot and it hurts me as well because I can't really blame them. But trust me, right now the students are so intelligent and developed. They know so much right now, the typical Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever you call it. They're very, very intelligent, they're very skilled, and now the sky is the limit. So that's it.
Great, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience. I think every student would take an inspiring advice from whatever you said. It has been a really good experience. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you so much once again to the Vacuum Express team. And I apologize if I said something out of line.
No, sir, something